Welcome to Neon Cobra. Let's kick into it. This week, we're going to do a little bit of a longer video because there's a lot of content I want to cover on this. Some of this will probably change over time, but I think this is a conversation I have quite honestly. And essentially, this is going to be building a successful Azure practice. What are the building blocks that it takes to really do this at scale and do this in a profitable level? So, we're going to talk about some high level tidbits, and then I'll probably link and reference and maybe even potentially do some follow up videos around this for areas that require a deep dive in. So if we take a look at kind of the starting points of this, we're going to do really pre-sales, a post-sales, and an ongoing kind of support structure. If these are the three buckets I'd have to categorize things in, that's where I would start. So from a clean pre-sales side, you essentially need to understand where your costs are going to be, right? So you need a pre-sales architect or someone that at least understands how to navigate the Azure pricing calculator. Understanding kind of your partnerships in the distribution channel or marketplaces you align with is very important as well, because how you get that licensing, how it's invoiced through, and even the resources there to support you when you need it are very important to ensure you have the proper roster and bench in line. Then what matters next, once you've gone through and you've kind of learned how to sell it, because that's also a key point, is it's a little bit different than traditional sales conversations, and that alone could be a whole other video, so we may do something along that. But once we have the sale, the next questions you have to figure out is how do you deploy it, right? Once you start building in Azure, time to market and time to live, like go live, is important, because the second you spin up, the timer starts going and your charges start going up. So having a skilled onboarding team is essential to not draining profitability or having a really upset client, right? Client buy-in is very important for a lot of this stuff too. And occasionally there'll be, offerings from Microsoft or things like that that can help offset some of these onboarding fees, right? The time to spin things up. But client buy-in is very important, because if they're dragging their feet to get you information, that's going to take time and the project is going to suffer as a result, and the bills are going to start rolling through. Having an extensive professional services network. So maybe you only have one Azure architect on staff and maybe he gets squirreled up and you've got two or three projects. So having a bench you can rely on, a trusted partner, is very important, especially as you grow and scale and you first start. And then a big one is leveraging tools that can help mitigate some of these risks. So I mentioned Nerdio Manager for MSP in the past. All this is really just like an orchestration and a management tool to help improve overall reliability and really standardize your operating practices, or creating SOPs for Azure deployments. When you have hours upon hours of your technicians slamming their head against a wall to kind of replicate what you might have done for another partner or another client, that's a problem, right? So evaluate what tools are available to you to help address some of these issues. Again, speed is key for this. Then you need to decide how you actually want to bill this stuff. There's almost an order of operations of, do I sell it first? Do I figure out what my billing structure is going to be? I would generally say go through the selling motion first, but then have the thought of how do you bill it in the background, right? And there's some approaches, and we talk about this all the time at PAX 8. You can do your fixed rate billing, right? So, I charge you $200 a seat for the infrastructure. It's all in. There's your MSRP, and then you slap margin on it. You can do management fees, or, like fixed management fees. So regardless of whatever the environment is, it's $200. But this is very important, because what often gets overlooked is the increased complexities sometimes when you start managing this environment. And if you're leaning on your service agreements to absorb those costs, you might find the overall environment becomes less profitable if you're not paying attention. It's also an incredible opportunity to increase your profitability by being able to blend margin now across services based on infrastructure, instead of just like, here's my service agreement. So you can blend that in there and it becomes a little bit more tangible to your clients. So once we get through, as well as billing it, how do we bring it into the environment, right? Your PSA integrations, when do you get your bills? How much are you going to float? Are you going to do a net 30 days, or, a 30-day net terms for your clients? Are you expecting immediate payments? Are you forward billing, right? All things up for consideration. And then finally, how do you support it, right? You get all the way through to the end, you get it online, it's great. And then 3 weeks later, there's a question. Your project team, if you've outsourced, it's gone, right? Everything's been signed off. Now you need to know how to support the environment. So this is, setting up training plans and paths for your organization, having an onboarding and offboarding of your own internal tools and tech, right? If you have one systems administrator that knows Azure and they leave the organization, your entire organization now is at risk if there's a problem in this stack you are not skilled up on. So having extensive networks for support, whether it's leveraging your marketplace distributors, whether it's having a third-party project shop on standby with advisory hours. and then start setting them, train them up, and have a skill set built into them. So this is 5-minute video and it's very hard to capture a lot of this information. So I'll probably break this down into certain areas, but coming from an MSP that did this move before, there's a lot of little nuance in things. And even, after the fact, you have to keep a finger on the pulse and make sure you're tracking changes and things that happen in the environment. So, if you have any questions or we want to dive into a specific thing, let me know, but I'll likely run a more in-depth dive on a lot of these items. And then you can reference back to some of my other videos about like how to run successful Azure projects or how to track and bill items out. And we'll kind of bundle it all up into a single video at some point. Thank you for your time. Really ask you to like and subscribe to the YouTube. It's how I grow views. It's how I get feedback. And as always, catch you next time.